Hello and good afternoon. Hi, Perrie.
Hi there.
So we are here to do another midweek show for you, and this might get a few people talking. And this is how just over 6,000 FIFE homeowners potentially feel let down, and the silent scandal of estate agents perhaps overvaluing. Now, before we get into the nitty gritty, let's cue VT. So let's get into it. And you know what? If you've ever thought about selling your home or you currently are selling your home, chances are you have been tempted when you hear that big number or the higher number that sticks out from other agents. You are kind of tempted by that. And then to kind of push, the asking price perhaps a little higher than advised, because as well, when it's your own home, you're passionate about it, you love your home, it's the best thing since sliced bread. So why would it not be worth X amount? Absolutely. And it is your biggest asset. It is. So, a few extra thousand on the asking price of your FIFE home sounds like a smart move, doesn't it? But that's where we're going to get into it. And really, what it comes down to is in property, chasing too much can often mean getting absolutely nothing at all, and you are no further forward in your property journey. And this is where during the show we're going to look back at the facts and figures. But actually, since the start of 2020, just over 6,000 homes listed for sale just in Fife, and they were withdrawn from the market unsold. And that's a number you maybe weren't expecting. So 2020, just over 6,000 homes listed for sale in Fife were withdrawn from the market unsold. Now, it doesn't mean to say it was all just down to price. There will be anomalies in there where circumstances changed, of course. Some may perhaps blame the timing or market conditions. There will also be those underlying problems. But a big portion of it will be the asking price was too high from the offset. So what we're going to do is we're going to explore that and unfold and why it's happening, but most importantly, what you can do as a FIFE homeowner that's potentially going to go to market to avoid falling into that same trap. But we know that there's a temptation there, isn't there, Perrie? But what is the consequences?
Oh, you're absolutely right, Sophie. There is a temptation and it can backfire. And those statistics show that over 6,000 people, for whatever reason, have had to withdraw from the market. And as you say, not all of it will be price. But when the estate agents come round and they pitch for your business, because that's what they're doing at the end of the day, they're pitching for the business. They know you've got a need, they've got a service that they want to provide. And so they want to be able to show and demonstrate that they're the person you should pick. So it's not uncommon when actually maybe say you get three people out and you'll hear one say it's 285,000, say. Another will say, oh, I think it's 300,000. And the next one might say 325, no hesitation, no caveats, just coming out with that long number. And it's flattering and it's exciting because you think your home's fantastic anyway, don't you? So you've also got this drive where you've lived there, you've maybe spent a lot of money in it, you've got a real passion for the property. So when someone says that, you suddenly think, oh, that's fantastic. And it's really difficult to get that number out of your head. It's human nature, isn't it? But it's often a trap, and that's what we're going to talk about. So some agents know exactly what the figure is, and they will go with the right figure to try and win your instruction. So for you basically to engage their services, even if it has little grounding in what the market will actually pay. So for me, they don't need to sell the home straight away. They just need it on their books. And that's what a lot of agents are doing. So what you need to really challenge that agent to do, and we've done previous shows on this, Sophie, haven't we, is make sure that they can actually demonstrate and give you a good understanding of true value. Where did that valuation come from? Is there a science behind what they've done, or have they just gone like that? Or have they actually, maybe they're the third one and they've said to you, oh, have you had it valued already? Who's already been out? Yeah, we've had somebody out and they've said 285, and we've had another out and they've said 300. And the agent will automatically go, oh, well, I think it's 325. Because immediately they know that they're going to captivate you with that high price. because they want to try and get that listing, they want to get that board in their street. So it's something really you need to be careful of. But once it's listed on the market, what will often happen is the homeowner ends up being the sole agent in regards to, you're not in Scotland, you don't utilise multiple agencies. So you've got one agency who's contracted with you, could be up to anything between 20 and 26 weeks potentially. And what they will do over time with you is just work on reducing the price. So, if you're 4 weeks in, nothing's happened, it's all quiet, you've not had viewings, or you've had viewings, and the feedback, and your agent should get this feedback because certainly we do. So part of our negotiation is when someone views a property and for whatever reason they may not be progressing, we always ask them, do you think the price point was right? If hypothetically, if you loved it and it gave you everything you wanted, the price that we've got it listed at, do you think that's right? And 9 times out of 10, we will get yes. It's absolutely correct. So really important to get that feedback as well. So your agent should be able to give you that feedback if you are having those discussions about your pricing. But again, if it's not selling and you get into week 4, they will possibly approach and say, actually, we're going to need to do a price reduction. Now, we would never say price reduction in our business. We call it a realignment, because actually what you're then doing is opening up to potentially another market. But if your price reduction is happening because actually it was overpriced to begin with, rather than just for whatever reason people haven't bought it, it's just something to be careful and cautious on, isn't it? Your ideal buyer probably as well has actually dismissed the property because they've looked at it and think, well, that's overpriced. Especially at this time of year when, I don't know about you, Sophie, but I'm certainly seeing it when I'm out and about. We're seeing a kind of repeat where there's maybe 2 or 3 boards in a location, and they might be 3 different agencies. There'll be different types of property, there'll be different values inside, there'll be different finishes, etc. But actually, when you've got that situation, then actually your buyer's got real choice to buy. And if your price point is completely skew-whiff to everyone else, if the actual building times 3 are the same, but actually internally they're slightly different. But if you've got a difference of, as that demonstrated, 285 to 300 to 325, then suddenly the buyer's going, hang on a minute, how is that working? And so that's something to be really careful of as well, because you could scare off your buyer. So not only is your agency going to be looking at price reductions, you're scaring off any potential buyer. So it's making it harder, which means it's going to stay longer, which means you're going to have to reduce it continuously to a point where someone's then willing to pay. But the difficulty with that as well, though, is that then potential new buyers who've just seen it, because actually it doesn't matter how long your property's been on the market, it's how long your buyer's been out there. But if a new buyer comes along and then suddenly they look at the property and all they continually see is price reduction, price reduction, price reduction, irrelevant of what the home report tells them, in their heads they're thinking, what's wrong with this house? And that's a difficult one. Really difficult to overcome that, Sophie, isn't it, once they've got that in their mindset?
Yes, and when they see price reduction, price reduction, price reduction, they think, oh, I might even come in even less and give them a cheeky offer, or they'll be needing to sell now because they're desperate. So actually, I'm doing them a favor, so I'm going to do an even lesser offer. It's all about mindset. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't fall into that trap would be my first thing. And what we did as well as part of this show in preparation is we looked at some of the FIFE numbers, and we've looked at it from 2020 till year to date, 2025. We're not going to cover all those years because there's lots of statistics within that. But what I would recommend is the link for the article is here. It's possibly about a 15-minute read maximum. So if you are someone who is into statistics, lots of us are, you will get more information in there, and it's a real good insight as to what's happening. But if we look at even just say 2024 as an example, of the 6,704 FIFE homes that came off the agent's books, so withdrawn, 5,445 of them sold and exchanged contracts.
Wow.
That's a difficult one. And the remaining 1,243 of them didn't sell. So that's an actual 19.6% failed to move house. That's a big percentage. 20% basically didn't move and withdrew from the market. So I think it's really important to look at that. So out of 6,704 that came to market, 5,445 completed, and 1,260 say didn't sell. That's quite a lot when you think about that over a year. That's over 100 a month. That's 25 each week. That's 5 a day.
Wow.
when you break
When
it down like that.
you break it down, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's really something to think about, and that's the reason why you don't want to fall into that trap. If we then fast forward to say 2025, now we've not got a complete year for that, obviously, we've got a quarter, but in that quarter, 2,509 homes came to markets on all the agencies' books. 2,045 of them sold and exchanged contracts, but the remaining 464 of them didn't sell. That's 18.5%. So there is an improvement there, slight, but it is still an improvement. But again, it's still 464 properties over a 3-month window. That's 150 a month didn't complete.
Yeah.
So when you look at it in that statistics, that then actually, when you break that down into your weeks, is about 35 a week, because more were listed in that time scale. Because if you look at the 2,509 and then multiply that, say, times 4 quarters, that's over 10,000 properties potentially coming to market versus just short of 7.
Yeah.
So whilst the percentage looks better, the actual number that didn't complete, if it run rates like this throughout the year, it's actually more. And that's a scary point. So definitely something for you to be very mindful of. So in total, that's 6,045 homes in Fife since January of 2020 that came to market yet never sold, when you then go back and look at all of the stats throughout those years. So again, that's something, if you're interested in, definitely have a look at that. But most of these were overvalued and they withdrew in frustration, because they do get frustrated. We talk about this continually. People move houses for their circumstances. Something is happening, and there's a life event that has occurred that's really motivating you to sell your home. No one moves home easily. It's the most stressful thing in the world. Nobody wants to do it, but you do it because something in your life has changed and you need to do it. So there could be various reasons for that. It could be a marital split. It could be you're upsizing because you've had additional family. You could be downsizing. You're maybe getting married. Maybe you've met a new partner and you need to get a place together. So these things are really life events for you. And I think if you can't then do those things, the frustration does then make you withdraw from market, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
And it's not a coincidence. There is a bit of a pattern here. So whilst we didn't go into all the statistics, Sophie, if you want to share the stats there so people can actually see that wave.
Absolutely.
So if we look at the kind of beginning scale here, so this is your 2020. So this is around March 2020. So along here, you've got all your dates right through until May 25. And then here on the side, you've got the actual number of properties, so 100 up to 800. So as you can see, if we look at 5 homes that exchanged and sold, they're in the red. So these are your exchanged and sold. So very much peaks and troughs, isn't it? Throughout the years.
Yeah. And you can see where the dip is, obviously, like pandemic. You can see, obviously, the dip, and you can see, obviously, that trend.
Exactly. So that's around here. But then if you look at the number of 5 homes that withdrew off the market, that actually is pretty steady, isn't it? And we've seen that in the stats.
Yeah. Again, there's the peak where you can see, obviously, pandemic, it peaks, understandable. But then, as you say, after that, it kind of just kind of plod along.
Yeah. So you get another little peak there, September 22. Again, obvious reasons what happened there. And then it's pretty steady all the way along.
Yeah.
Coming into May, it's gone down very slightly, but you know how that will project going forward. But that gives you a bit of a visual on it, but definitely worthwhile you looking at the full article and having a wee read of all the stats and see how that may impact you, if at all. But it'll allow you to get an idea of what actually is happening in the marketplace. And actually, what's very interesting when you look at this is actually it does repeat itself. So it's almost like it's on a cycle when you see it in that graph matter. But actually, what does that really mean to everybody, Sophie, in regards to, you know, what are the consequences of overvaluing?
Yeah, and it's not just down to perhaps a delay in the sale. It can completely wreck it. 5 properties that sit on the market too long become stale. And as you've already touched on, Perrie, then people go, what's wrong with it? That is just mindset. And there's no matter how much we try and say, look at the home report, there's nothing wrong with it, mindset that it's already been, the seed's been planted. And buyers then start asking questions. Why isn't it sold? What's wrong with it? Are there problems with the neighbours? Is there problems with the location? Is there problems with the property? Is there structural issues? People then start spiraling, and one thing leads to another. So even when the price is eventually reduced to that realistic level, the damage is done. And we always say this, and we say this as well to clients that are looking to move from another agent over to ourselves. And when it's been priced too high by the other agent and we look to take it on, that is what we also say as well. The damage has been done. The market has already seen it at that really high price point. We've got a lot of work to do. Our work is cut out for us tenfold. And it now then competes as well with fresher listings that appear perhaps more desirable. And again, it is the element of more choice. Even if, and you may think, and even we could say it as the agents, even if yours is better, there is other fresher listings, maybe that have also seen your really high price point that you started out at. They've then had their agent come in and gone, oh, well, that one's at that price, it's not selling. We're going to need to be competitive and come way under. Which then again, and then what's going to frustrate you even more is you're going to then see this one sell within a week, 2 weeks, and you're going to go, oh, but that one sold. But that's because they've based it on your high price point and they've gone, oh, well, to be competitive, we're going to need to come in way less, and then they sell. Granted, you won't know what they've sold for until it completes, but still, again, it's that mindset. So you are competing with fresher listings. And it's a painful truth. In many cases, many FIFE homes that were originally overpricing end up selling for less than if they'd just been matched correctly in the very first place.
I think especially when we look at this timeline as well, because we're comparing this up to the end of May. So certainly we've seen it, and we've seen the numbers even in those statistics that we've given. There's more property come to market now, and it does, because in the winter months and coming into spring, people think, oh, actually we're going to wait till the summer. But then some people will take our advice and say, actually, don't wait till the summer. Now's good with the marketing strategy that we have. Go now. So you will have potentially people who have gone, say, January. It's not sold, it's not sold, it's not sold. They're now into April, coming into May. And then suddenly what's happening is all those other people who wanted to sell in the summer are listing too. So there's just so much more choice out there, isn't there? So it's not just that there's fresher listings, there's more of them.
Correct. Absolutely. And as well, and this is again a statistic and something we spoke about previously, but actually the longer that it takes for you to secure that buyer, actually there is a higher risk of that sale then actually falling through, even when you're going through the conveyancing stages. So even if you do eventually get that buyer and you perhaps, agree on a offer price, when you've then got that buyer there and you've dropped the asking price after 3 months, then do you know how long it actually takes to find a buyer that can directly affect your chances of moving? And this is data that we have spoke about before, but homes that go under offer, and that's, sold subject to concluded missives, within 25 days of first hitting the market, have a 94% success rate. So 94% of properties have that success rate. And when we say success rate, we mean signed missives conclude, a new buyer moves in. That is that completely done within the first 25 days. But actually, if we jump that and you're on the market for over 100 days before agreeing a sale, the success rate drops drastically. And you're maybe not going to be expecting this percentage that I tell you, but it drops to 56% of then that process of conveyancing and missive signing actually completing. So over 100 days, your success rate drops to 56%, which just shows you.
It's a massive difference. It's nearly half, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. It is. And people will be shocked at that, I can guarantee. But if that doesn't scream, price it right from the start, we don't know what does. That speaks for itself. It really, really does. It's black and white. It speaks for itself, but it's really all about the price point. And we say this, and we're not asking you to, we're not undervaluing your home. That's not what we're looking to do here. It's about not overvaluing it and getting it just right. And that's where Perrie touched on, is your estate agent demonstrating with recent comparables, with the square footage, with the standard of the property, with the footprint? Are they looking at all of that, or have they just plucked a number out the air? So we're not looking to undervalue it, but we need it to be realistically valued. But Perrie, we have touched on this, but why do FIFE estate agents still overvalue?
I know, you wonder why they do it when it causes so many issues, doesn't it? But they keep doing it. Simple pressure. That's why they do it. So some corporate and larger estate agents measure success not by what they sell, not by how much they sell that house for over the home report, but actually by how many boards they have up. And the agents that work for those corporates are pressurized to deliver those numbers, so they're constantly chasing the boards. So there are even some estate agencies who will pay their staff bonuses for getting boards. So that's another way that they work it. So, if they sign someone up, then they list their house with them, regardless of the outcome, they'll be paid. So the agent is out there to try and deliver their own individual numbers. They don't necessarily always have the interests of the seller in mind. They've got an alternative reason for being there as well, of course. But when it comes to the goals and the accuracy of it, it's important to kind of take a little bit of a back seat. Telling sellers what they want to hear, in my view, doesn't necessarily become a profitable situation to be in. If they're just looking at a commission check, those agents that are doing that, then actually that's going to backfire quite a bit. For us, being honest and open and transparent, basically telling the truth is probably the best way to start. And that way, then you're not going to have that 50% dropout after 100 days. But to get a listing at all costs, sometimes, that is there, and we've seen it, and we've heard those stories ourselves. We've seen case studies of it. But it's a culture that kind of creates a false economy, really, because actually, yes, you might have multiple boards, but if multiple boards aren't selling, then actually that's not a great position to be in. And it doesn't really actually give off the correct image for your agency and also for the individuals that work for you. But actually, the biggest factor is that it hurts the seller so much and what they want to do with their lives. We work and live in our communities, so we have to be transparent with what we're doing. It's really important to us. You don't want to end in failure by not selling the property and giving them their dream. At the end of the day, we are managing their lives as it happens for them, and we want to make sure that we can deliver on that. So yeah, some agents, while they fulfill their numbers and their quota, the homeowners are still left really disappointed. And actually, that's not why we do this job. Our job here is to, as I said earlier on, it's to help people manage their lives as it's changing, and make things happen for them and deliver what they need to do for whatever reasons that they have for doing them. So what are the overpricing traps? What can people do to kind of avoid that situation?
Of course. And just obviously what you were saying, Perrie, I think it comes down to the class that you said about boards, but that's really where you see other agents, and it is just quantity over quality, and it's just firing them out, whereas that is not what we're looking to do. So then these are the tips to look out for, or to try and avoid that overpricing trap. Get more than one opinion. Don't rely just on that one single valuation. It's a bit like when you go and get car insurance, for example, or house insurance. You go on to Go Compare, and you compare the valuations, and you look at what you're getting for that, what services, obviously what that it looks like. So get a couple of different valuations, invite 2 or 3 FIFE agents around. If you have one quote that's really low, one quote that's really high, and then one in the middle, ask for evidence. Ask every agent for evidence and where they got that from. Ask them questions like, what are their recent sales within the area? What are they achieving over the home report value? How long are they taking to get properties sold? If anybody watches the FIFE property market update, there was 3 properties last week. One was sold in 2 weeks, one was sold in 4 weeks, one was sold from social media. So ask your agent that. Can they give you all that information and demonstrate that? And we'll always say it, but it's almost like interview your estate agent. Ask questions, be prepared, treat it like a job interview and ask them questions. Also put it back on them and ask them if they have any questions for you, to show that they're interested, to show that they can think on their feet. So get more than one opinion. Do your homework as well. Look at similar FIFE homes, and you can do this by going on to Rightmove. Everybody can access data. If you can go onto Rightmove, do sold prices, you can put in your postcode or your street, and it brings up and shows you previous listings and sale prices. So you can also then sit and compare and have a good idea yourself. You can do that on the Zoopla as well. And it'll give you an idea over perhaps the past 2 years. And we wouldn't really go any longer than that, but perhaps the last 2-3 years, what properties are selling for, because actually over the past 2 years, the average sale price agreed has consistently between 98.7% and 99.1% of the asking price at the time that the offer was accepted. So not the original asking price, but at the time that the offer was accepted. And that really does highlight how realistic pricing draws in committed buyers. So get more than one opinion, do your homework, and with that homework, understand the FIFE market trends. You know, we're still seeing it now, the effects obviously of the pandemic and how obviously that really did push property prices up. Don't fall into that trap where you see those prices and how much over that went. The East New, 15-20% over the home report. That's not the case anymore. Yes, you get anomalies like that, and that's what somebody's willing to do, and that's for us to negotiate, but that's not an average. We need to be more realistic with the current market. Don't base your expectations on a market that no longer exists in a situation that existed at the time. And if you are considering selling, take a moment to check the property portals for homes like yours in the area. Now, you perhaps know if you've got boards up, that's so-and-so's and that's like that. Or, and actually mine compared to that, mine's actually got an extra bedroom and mine's got a utility. I put a new kitchen in. You'll have maybe a rough idea anyway, but really do compare how current for sale properties are compared to yours. And then it'll help you. If over 40% are sold subject to concluded missives, it's a seller's market. But actually, if it drops below 30%, buyers hold the upper hand. That's when it is actually a buyer's market. So that gives you a good idea as well. And as I've just mentioned, we also do the weekly updates, and go back and watch this week's for the last month, because we did the month statistics and also the week statistics, because we do say 1 week doesn't make a trend, but there is the monthly roundup for June within that, and that gives you a great insight. Now, finally, one last top tip is choose the right FIFE estate agent. Make sure it's a local agent that knows the area and also has integrity and has proven track records. And how are they demonstrating them proven track records? What do their reviews look like? What are their, have you had recommendations? Ask around, speak to people, whether it be family, friends, work. Have an estate agent that backs up the valuation, can demonstrate their value adds, explain their reasoning, focus on obviously that end result that helps you move on in your journey, and makes it feel not just like they're getting a board up, as Perrie's mentioned. That would be my top tips, Perrie. I don't know if there's any that you would add to that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's about don't fall for the fantasy asking price, for sure. I think overvaluing, while it might seem like a harmless gamble, it really isn't. It's the quickest way to burn time, to lose your buyers, and to even end up with less than you would have started with, as we mentioned earlier on. So the property market, really, thousands of homes have failed to sell in the last 5 years, and you'll see that when you look at the statistics. That's not because there's been a lack of demand. The demand is there, but it's because the prices have not been accurate, and it's made people have to withdraw the properties. So we're not doom mongering here. Please don't think that, because actually the property market is very, very healthy. This is a small portion, as you've seen. So, you know, the earlier point was just under 20%, then it's down to 18.5% of the people that withdraw from the market. So you've got 80% success rate and lots of people that have gone happily on to do what they need to do with their lives. But if you are upsizing, downsizing, or relocating entirely, just make sure you get the right advice that you need, not just the advice that you want to hear. I think that's the key thing.
Yes.
You know, we often say it to people, you know, when we have a conversation and perhaps they've said something that's a bit unrealistic in regards to their expectation, if it's the number. We have to have that open, frank discussion and say, actually, do you want me to sugarcoat this, or do you want me to be honest? Because the evidence that I have here tells me that it's not worth that. It's worth that to you, but it's not worth that in the marketplace at the moment. And I think sometimes that's a difficult conversation to have. Not everyone is comfortable having it, but it's so vital to have it, because actually you're going to be starting the journey with that potential seller on a real negative otherwise, if you've totally overpriced it. So I think that's a really important point. So for me, that would be my final thing. Don't just hear what you want to hear. Take on board the facts, the figures, the shared information. Make sure it's been demonstrated to you so that actually you can understand it, rather than being bamboozled by numbers.
Absolutely. My final thoughts would just simply be, you get one chance to make a first impression. Price it right, attract some serious buyers quickly so you don't fall into the statistic of 56% falling through, and just make informed decisions. If you don't know, go to your agent and ask the questions. It's your biggest asset. So make informed decisions. But if you do have any questions, comments, feel free to put them in the comments. If you prefer to obviously private message, do that. Or likewise, you can call the team and we'll be more than happy to speak through with you, maybe the market in your specific area. We can come out and see you, give you an accurate valuation, and then discuss next steps with you. But that would be my final thoughts.
Perfect. Fantastic. Great. Well, thank you for your time, everyone. You can rewatch the show or read the article if you wish. And it's goodbye from us. Till next time. Take care.
Take care. Bye for now.